Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel Query Solution. So it's the first session on the next chapter that we are dealing today, which is control and coordination. A very important chapter, children, so I would advise you all to pay attention while you see the videos. And in today's session, these are all the subtopics that we are going to cover. First of all, we are going to see an introduction. What is the meaning of the title of the chapter, which is control and coordination? Then we are going to understand what are the different types of sense organs and what are the different receptors which are associated with these sense organs in our body. Then we are going to understand the structure of a very important cell in our body, which is neuron. Also, we are going to learn what are the different types of neurons in our body. And lastly, in the video, we are going to see that how does the messages or the information gets conducted or transferred in our body from one part of our body to the other. So even if you want to know all this into details, do watch my video completely. And for now, let us start with our video. So first of all, let us understand what is the meaning of the term control and coordination here. Because since we are learning the chapter, it's very important first of all that we understand what does the title of the chapter mainly states. So control means what? Here we are saying that control means here we are trying to perform some action. An action in which way? So action in a controlled way, right? We do perform, like if right now you guys are hearing me, you guys are in a state of mind, you're in a particular state of mind through which you are able to perform the action which is hearing me right now. Or if I am performing my action, which is teaching the video right now or making a video for you all guys, means even I am performing an action in a controlled manner. So whenever we are performing any action in a control or in a systematic manner mainly, how do we achieve this as? How can we do? How can we perform an action which is in a systematic manner, or we can do it in a proper way mainly? So whenever any action is done by the body, children, this is done with the help of various organs in our body. And most importantly, the important organs that play a very important role are your sense organs. So I hope you guys are aware what are sense organs. This is something that kids used to learn in grade 4 and 5. Even they know what are sense organs mainly, right? What do sense organs do? So sense organs basically help us in understanding different stimulus. Now what is stimulus and response? I'll come on to that in case if you guys are not aware about. But for now, what are we trying to understand is that whenever we are performing an action in a controlled way, how do we achieve that process as? So we are able to perform actions with the help of sense organs in our body, and we do know how many different types of sense organs we have. So we have got 5 different types of sense organs in our body. So utilizing these sense organs, we are trying to perform an action, right? But it's not just the sense organ. We also need help from different organs of our body, and they all work in a coordinated manner. All the organs, all the tissues, they work together so that with the help of sense organs, with the help of different organs in our body, we are able to perform an action efficiently. So if this much is clear to us, let us try to define what is control and coordination basically as. So how can you define control and coordination then? So control and coordination is the working together. It is the working together of various organs of an organism in which way? So in a systematic way or in a systematic manner, anything you can use, in a systematic manner to produce or to perform an action. Alright. So this is how you can define the title of the chapter, which is control and coordination. The working together of various organs of our body to basically perform an action, and not just irrelevantly but mindfully, systematically. That is what we say as control and coordination. So since here we are learning about control and coordination, this is very important that we are clear with 2 important keywords here. One which is known as stimulus and one which is known as a response. So in case you guys already know what are these two keywords, well and good, very good, so that you will be able to understand the chapter ahead. But those in case who don't know what are these two important keywords, then please pay attention, because that's what exactly we are discussing right now. So how do you define a stimulus as? What do you mean by a stimulus? So stimulus basically means it is an environmental trigger. So what is a stimulus? Stimulus is basically an environmental trigger that initiates a reaction. So what does stimulus is doing? Stimulus is basically an environmental trigger. So it's an outside trigger mainly that initiates a reaction. And whatever reaction is given to the stimulus, whatever reaction given to the stimulus is something that is known as what? So the reaction which is given to the stimulus is known as response. So in a way, if we see, both the keywords are utilized hand in hand in both the definitions. What is a stimulus we are defining? It's an environmental trigger that is basically initiating a reaction or a response. And when we are talking about response, what are we saying? So it's a reaction which is given to a particular stimulus. So both of the things go hand in hand. Without stimulus, there would be no response, and 110% without response, there would be no stimulus mainly into picture, right? So both of the keywords are utilized in either ways, in control and coordination or for performing any action mainly. So since here now we talked about sense organs, since we talked about the stimulus, since we talked about the responses, so let us now see what are the different sense organs which are present in the human body. So let's quickly check that part now. Okay, so just pay attention on this part now. This is something which is very important and possible 1 mark question again. So as we know that in the case of human body, there are these 5 different types of sense organs that we have. We have got eye, we have got ears, we have got nose, we have got tongue, and then we have got skin. And what do these sense organs help into? So if I say eye, what is our eye? What is the job of eye in our body, or what is the function of eye in our body? It helps us to see objects mainly, right? If we talk about ear, it helps us to detect sound. What does nose do? So it helps us in detecting the smell. That's why when you're roaming around on road and you get to smell some good food, basically how do you understand that there is some good food being cooked or being available near you? So it's because of the nose that we have. We are able to taste the food because of the tongue that we have, and we are able to feel touch or sensations because of the skin that we have. So all these sense organs that here we are talking about are sensitive for some or the other stimulus, right? So sense organs are basically sensitive towards different stimulus. And as we discussed, what is eye sensitive towards? So eye is sensitive towards sight, right? Ears are sensitive towards sound. Nose is sensitive towards smell. Tongue is sensitive towards taste, and skin is sensitive towards touch. So this is something like from a very from grade like maybe 4 or 5 grades you would be studying all this concept right now. The important thing, children, based on grade 10 that you need to know is that all these sense organs here that we are talking about consist of some specialized cells into them. Just hear me out, what am I saying? This is very important. All the sense organs that we are talking about consist of some specialized group of cells, and these group of cells are some things which is known as receptor. Now this is something new which you all need to know, and this is also given in NCERT. So don't feel why am I teaching you extra, but this is just a small glimpse given, so you do need to know what are these receptors. So how do you define receptors as? So receptors are basically group of cells which are sensitive towards a particular stimulus. That's how you define a receptor as. So if I'm saying that eye has a receptor, so yes, eye has its own receptor, ear has its own receptors, nose has its own receptors, tongue has its own receptors, and even skin has its own receptor, and all these receptors are different from each other. And how are they different? Because all these receptors are sensitive for some particular type of stimulus. Alright. So if I am saying that eye as a sense organ has some receptors, but what do you think? What will be the sensitive stimulus for the eye? So the sensitive stimulus for the receptors of the eye is sight. And what do you call these receptors as? Are there some names of these receptors also? So the answer is yes. And that is exactly what you need to know and remember also. The receptors of the eye is something which is known as a photoreceptor. A very important concept, children. So please be aware about all the names that we are going to discuss. Eye is helping us in visualizing, right, a sight, and photo also means the same. So just remember the keyword photo, a picture, and that's how you can remember the name of the receptor. So the receptor of the eye, which is sensitive for the sight of basically any image or sight or visualization, is something that we say as a photoreceptor. So what is ear going to do, as we know? So ear basically is sensitive towards a stimulus which is known as sound. So what is the name of this specialized cell which is sensitive towards sound? So this is something which is known as phonoreceptor. Again, something you guys can easily remember. Phone is something we guys use to talk, right? And we keep it on our ears. So just remember the keyword phone here. And the phonoreceptors basically, which are there in our body, present in our ears, help us to detect the sound. Okay. What does the receptors of the nose are known as then? So the receptor of nose are known as olfactory receptor. So this is something new, but I'm not sure if it's new to you or not, but this is something that you have to remember, like photo and phono. So you just have to remember there is no relation here, but the receptors that are present in our nose, sensitive for different smell, mainly something that we say as olfactory receptors. What then the receptors of tongue would known as? So the receptors of tongue is something which are known as gustatory receptors. Very important 1-mark question, children. So please be aware on the names of all these important receptors also. And lastly, the receptor of skin is something that is known as thermoreceptor. So as we discussed in this particular part of the video right now, what did we understood? We do know that we have got sense organs. We do know that these sense organs help us in understanding different types of stimulus, right? We were aware on this part. But we have to be aware what are the names of the different receptors which are there in all these different sense organs in our body. So we learned that today that the receptors of the eye, which will be sensitive towards sight, is something that we are saying as photoreceptors. For ears being sensitive towards sound, we say them as phonoreceptors. Receptor being sensitive towards smell and nose is known as olfactory receptors. Receptors that are associated with taste is something that is known as gustatory receptors. And receptors which are sensitive for touch is something that we say as thermoreceptors. So I hope at least this much part of the video is clear to you. Okay. Now let us just understand what is the basic flow when a information is conducted in our body. So right now what am I doing? I am recording a video for you guys, right? I am teaching a concept to you, and the concept is on control and coordination. And what you guys are doing right now? So you guys are hearing me, right? You guys are watching my video by using your sense organ, which is eye, and at the same time you guys are hearing my voice because of using your sense organ, which is the ears. So your photo and phonoreceptors are active right now, and what are they doing? They are catching the stimulus, the sight and the sound, sending it to your brain. Your brain is processing this information and making you understand that, okay, what am I actually trying to teach you? So let us just see this entire concept in a flowchart. Let us understand in detail what exactly is happening. So there is basically a stimulus which is coming in front of you. And what stimulus is coming? The stimulus of sight and the stimulus of sound, right? These two stimulus are coming in front of you right now in the way of my writing and through my voice. Now what is your body doing basically? It is accepting this stimulus, and who is basically understanding what is this sight and sound is all about? So the receptors which are there in your sense organs associated with your eyes and ears, right? The photo and the phonoreceptors. These receptors are basically accepting the stimulus which is coming. Now what are these receptors going to do? So these receptors are going to take help of important cell over here, which is known as neuron Alright, what are receptors going to do? So receptors are now going to send this information, this sound, this sight that you guys are seeing right now. The receptors are sending this stimulus through to a neuron, and from the neuron this message is going to your nervous system. Right? The neurons which are there, which are very important cell in our body associated with our nervous system. So the stimulus through the receptors, through the neurons is taking all the information to your nervous system. What is your nervous system doing then? So your nervous system is again taking help of different neurons and then processing the information. Your brain is processing that, okay, what am I teaching? So okay, I taught you about photoreceptors, I taught you about stimulus mainly. And if you guys are able to comprehend my words, if you guys are able to comprehend the information I'm trying to do, so basically the neurons that are sending my sound to your brain, to your nervous system right now, that is processing the information in your brain, and with the help of neuron you guys are able to understand and comprehend and complete the action. How you guys are completing the action? So in case if many of you are noting down all these important notes that I'm teaching you guys, what you guys are actually doing, you guys are using your hand, right? You must be holding a pen, writing notes in your copy. Or maybe not now, but when your teacher is teaching you in class, what do? When they are teaching, you're penning down the note. Your teacher is speaking, the receptors are accepting the voice of your teacher, sending it through the neuron to your nervous system. Your nervous system is processing the information that, okay, what is your teacher teaching you? And then with the help of neurons again, your neurons are sending the message to your effector organ. Now, what is this? I'll tell you. But neurons are sending the information to your effector organ, and through your effector organ, the action is getting completed. So, what action is getting completed? You are penning down the note. So, my teaching you is your stimulus. Processing is what is happening in your body, and you writing down the notes is basically completing this entire action. And who is completing, who is helping you in complete the action completely? So basically your effector organ. So what are effector organs now? So effector organs, children, are those organs that help you in completing your action. So just tell me now, if you guys are hearing my voice, if your neurons are sending the message to your nervous system, if you guys are able to understand what am I teaching, and if you guys are even writing down the notes, these all notes if you guys are writing down in your copy, what would be your effector organ then? Who is completing the action? Which part of your body is writing down the notes? Which part of your body is completing the action? So the answer is your hand, right? Your hand is in coordination. It's working in coordination with your brain. Your brain is messaging the hands of your body that, all right, hold a pen and note this down. This is important. And how are you able to process it? Because your nervous system has processed this entire information that, all right, something important is coming in front of you. Neuron has sent the message. Now neurons are also sending the message to hands of your body that hold your pen and note this down in your copy, because this is something important that can be asked in exam. And that's what we always do. When you're walking on road and you see a car coming in front of you, what do? A car is a stimulus. The receptors of your body again accept that stimulus, that car is coming. This message that car is coming from the neuron goes to your brain. And what is your brain messaging you then? Brain is going to analyze that, all right, car is coming, it can hit us. Car is coming, it can harm us. So what is your brain going to do? It is going to process. Then with the help of neurons again, it is going to send message to your legs. Now effector organs have changed. Now the effector organ is your leg, because what are you doing? When the car will come, you will move, right? You won't just keep standing there that, okay, let the car come and show some damage to us, right? We won't do that. But basically our nervous system will process this information that car is coming, it can hit us, it can damage us, and with the help of neuron it will send the message to the legs of our body, which are the effector organ, the muscular system of our body, and we will basically move away from that place. So that's how, children, basically the information or the conduction of impulses or information happen in our body. So what did we learn in entire flowchart here? we learned that here we studied about stimulus, we studied about receptors also, but here we were talking about neurons. So what is a neuron? Neuron, children, are basically, what is a neuron? So let me define this important keyword for you guys. So neuron is basically the structural and functional unit of what? So this is the structural and functional unit of your nervous system. So this is what a neuron is all about. It is the structural and functional unit of a nervous system. So it is very important that we understand what does and how does a neuron look like, and how can we draw a well labeled diagram of a neuron, because this is a very possible question when it comes to your grade 10 exam. So let us quickly see how does the structure or diagram of a neuron look like. Alright, so as I always say, children, that there is a playlist which is available on my channel where I show you how to draw diagram. The name of the playlist is also how to draw diagram. So you can just go to the playlist section of my videos and check all these diagrams that you guys draw. Now the important thing what you guys can see here is, I hope there is diagram 1 over here, which is a actual diagram you guys should draw, and then there is this diagram which I get to see 90% of children drawing. This is how children are basically drawing diagram of neuron, and let me tell you, this is absolutely the wrong way to draw diagram, and I'll tell you why. So let us understand what are these parts, different parts of a neuron mainly. So whenever we talk about neuron, in neuron there are three important structures that we need to know. The first important part over here, which is known as a cyton or a cell body, and this part mainly consists of the nucleus, which is a very important structure whenever we talk about any cell in our body, right? So the nucleus is present in the cyton region of the neuron, so you guys should be aware on that. The second long elongated pipe kind of structure that you guys are looking at is something which is known as the axon. So that's the second important part of a neuron. First one being cyton, second one being the axon. And the ending over here that you see, the last part over here, is something which is known as the nerve ending. So these are all the different parts of neurons that we study: the cyton, the axon, and the cell body. Now, what is the difference between here and here? So I hope many of you can see through the structure. Here, the extensions of the neurons that you guys are looking over here is something that we say as dendrites. So this is something we study from previous grades too. So I hope you know what is dendrite. Many children draw these dendrites as hairy structure, some thin hair-like structure. This is what you normally get to see in exams or normally in your classwork copies also. The wrong thing over here, children, is dendrites are not hairy. Dendrites have a little thickness in them, and these dendrites are basically the cytoplasmic extensions of this entire cell body. So they are never hairy. First of all, they have got some thickness, and that's the reason I have drawn them a little thicker but not hairy. So that's point number one that you guys should always be avoiding. Always draw dendrites having some thickness, because as I said you, dendrites are cytoplasmic extensions. They are not hairy structures. So I hope I have made you clear first of all what's wrong here and what's correct here. So in the cell body, we get to see these extensions which are dendrites. Definitely the nucleus and the cytoplasmic part is present of the cyton. Then we have this long structure, elongated structure, which is covered by myelin sheaths, and the areas where these sheaths are absent, because these myelin sheaths are present in constrictions, one part, then second part, then third part. So the parts where these sheaths are absent is something that we say as nodes of Renvier. Alright, and coming to the last part, mainly here, this ending that you see is also a problem in this diagram. Many children draw the ending also hairy, which is wrong, because in a neuron, mainly whenever there are the ending regions of neuron, the base part of it is a swollen knob kind of a structure, and that's why we say them as axonal knobs. So remember this important thing when you are drawing. It's a knob kind of a structure. It is a little globular kind of a structure which we say as axonal knob. And then comes the important part, which is your synapse. So what is a synapse here? Now synapse basically means the place where one neuron is going to meet the other neuron. So as you can see here, this is a big diagram of neuron that I have drawn, and here it's a smaller diagram that you guys can see, right? Why smaller and why have I drawn it here? Why have I not drawn it here? So now remember children, there is one ground rule whenever the neurons are transmitting the messages. And what is that ground rule? The ground rule is that the messages in the neurons will always flow from the dendrites to the axon. What's the ground rule? Remember again, this is very important whenever we are talking about neuron and conduction. In the case of neurons, the messages or the information will always flow from the upper end, which is dendrite of a neuron, to the axon of neuron. The messages will never flow from the axon to the dendrite. That's never gonna happen. Always, forever and forever till we guys are alive, the messages and information will always travel from the dendrites to the axon of one neuron, and then the dendrite of another neuron to the axon of that neuron. So that is how, if one neuron is getting connected with another, this association first of all is known as a synapse. And since I said you the information will always flow from the dendrite to the axon, so consider this is neuron 1. This is neuron number 2. What is happening? Neuron 1 got the information from the dendrite. It traveled all the way from here, reached till the ending here. Now as it reached the ending, how it is transferring the message to second neuron? So again through the same pathway from the dendrites to the axon. So again the message will go to the dendrite of neuron number 2, will travel all through the axon, and then again to neuron number 3, the message will go to the dendrite again. So in this way children, as the information flow from one dendrite to the axon, then dendrite to the axon of other, then dendrite to the axon of other, the information keeps flowing in one direction and it maintains the uniformity in the flow of direction also. So this is very important whenever we are talking that neurons are sending the messages. Now, after learning the diagram and after looking at this picture again, what have I drawn here? That the receptors are going to perceive the stimulus, neurons are going to process it, neurons are going to send it to nervous system, and then again neurons are going to send it to effector organ. So is one neuron only doing all this job? There are like millions of neurons in your brain. Yes, I do know that. There are millions of neurons associated with your nervous system. But are those all the neurons doing same job? Same neuron is getting the message from receptor, same neuron is transferring the message to effector organ? So no. Again to point out here, our body is very organized. Our body, you might not be organized in your habits. You might throw your shoes or bag and things here and there. But your body exactly know what it needs to do. And they have got their job divided. Our body know there are some sets of neurons which are going to accept the information from the receptors, and then there are some sets of neurons which are going to send the message to the effector organ, and these are different neurons doing different jobs or different functions. So what are the names of these neurons now is what we need to know. So those neurons which receives the information from the receptors, which are getting the information from the different receptors of your sense organ and sending it to your nervous system. These are the neurons children which are known as sensory neuron. Now please remember the keyword, very important. Here we are talking about the types of neuron. Okay, so the neurons which are getting the information from the receptors and the neurons which are sending the information to your nervous system are known as what? So they are known as sensory neuron. Getting from receptor, sending to the nervous system are sensory. Then once the information is sent here, your nervous system is going to analyze the entire information and again it is going to use neuron. So do you think sensory neuron are going to send to effector? So no. Once the information is processed from your nervous system is again going to send the information that what to do for any action or any stimulus with the help of neurons again. But what type of neurons here? So here the information from the nervous system. Now here the information was sent. Now the information is going from the nervous system. So the information from the nervous system will travel through another set of neurons which are known as motor neurons. And these motor neurons are going to get connection with whom? So these are having connections with the effector organ, or let me rather rephrase it. These motor neurons will transfer the information to the effector organ. So remember the difference. Neurons are, yes, the structural and functional unit of nervous system, but neurons' job is different. The one which is going to send the message to the nervous system are known as sensory. These are going to send message to the nervous system. Alright, so that's why I'm writing, or let me write it properly. These are the one which are going to send the message to the nervous system. That's why we say them as sensory. And what is motor going to do? So these are the one which are going to send the message from the nervous system. So after analyzing what your nervous system has to do, once the information from the nervous system is taken up and sent to the effector organ, this job will be done by the motor neuron. So there is again one more important set. There is something which is known as a relay neuron also. Let me just use a different pen. So there is something which is known as a relay neuron also. What do you think? What is a relay neuron then? Sensory neuron's job was to send the message to nervous system. Okay, done. Motor neuron's job was to take the message from the nervous system and send to effector organ. Alright. What about relay neuron? What do they do? So relay neurons are basically the connecting link between your sensory and the motor neurons. So whenever we talk about the different types of neuron, there are how many types of neurons? So whenever we study the different types of neuron, there are mainly three different types of neurons that are there in our body. One is known as sensory neuron. Second is known as your motor neuron. And the third are known as your relay neuron. What is sensory neuron going to do? So these sensory neurons are going to send the message to your nervous system. Motor neurons are going to send the message from the nervous system. And relay neurons are basically a connection between sensory and the motor. So with this, children, we have completed basically what are receptors, how is the information transferred, and what are the different types of neurons in our body. So let me now just quickly draw one simple flow chart, because it can be asked in question regarding the transmission or conduction. It's entirely the same thing, but I'll draw it in a proper manner. You can take a note of it, and you can also draw that same in the exam also. So let's quickly see that. So this is a quick flow chart, as you can see, children, over here, that explains us that how actually the messages are conducted through our nervous system and how any action is completed. So as we have just now seen, that stimulus is basically an environmental trigger, and we have got sense organs in our body which are sensitive to some particular types of stimulus, and these sense organs consist of these specialized group of cells which are known as receptors. So as we discussed, the 5 different sense organs that we have has 5 different types of receptors which are sensitive to 5 different types of stimulus. So any stimulus which comes ahead of us is basically taken up by the different receptors in our body, and then these receptors actually sends the message to the first neuron, or the first important category of neuron, which are known as the sensory neuron. So it is very important for us to understand that what is a sensory neuron. So it is actually a type of neuron itself. It is a part of nervous system. But what is the job of this neuron mainly? That this neuron, the sensory neuron, will accept the message from the receptor, and it is going to send the message to the nervous system. So the job of sensory neuron is to take the message from receptor and send it ahead to the nervous system. That's the job done by the sensory neuron. Okay. So the stimulus picked up by the receptor, whatever message the stimulus is carrying through the sensory neuron or via the sensory neuron is sent to our nervous system. So what is our nervous system now going to do? So it is going to basically analyze the stimulus. What is the stimulus basically? What action what action is supposed to be taken, that all processing would be done by your nervous system. It's like your CPU. So your brain is basically processing that, okay, if a car is coming, what should I do? So we do know if a car is coming, we'll actually go to one side. But this action just by thinking won't be completed, right? It has to be done by the legs of your body. Your legs should move so that basically you can be safe mainly, right? So once the processing is done by the nervous system that, okay, there is a car coming in front of us and it can harm us, what is this nervous system going to do? Now it is going to use another set of neuron. And what are these neurons known as? So these are the ones which are known as motor neurons. So there is a difference of neurons here, as you can see here. The receptors send the message to the sensory neuron and sensory neurons send the message to the nervous system. Now, once the processing is done by the nervous system, that what action has to be taken, now the whatever decision is there now through the motor neurons will be transferred to the effector organs. And what are effector organs? So those organs which will complete the action are known as what? So they are known as effector organ. So let's complete the cycle. Your body has seen that there is a car approaching in front of you. The eyes and the ears, the receptors which are there, they became active and they have perceived the stimulus that, okay, there is a car coming. Now it has to send the message to the brain of your body. So it took the help of sensory neurons and has sent the message that there is a car coming, can harm us, to the nervous system. Now your nervous system has basically processed, all the processing is done over here, that okay, we have to move so that we remain safe. That's the decision taken by the nervous system, but it has to be completed by the legs. Now how will the legs be informed that what is supposed to be done? So this job from the nervous system will be transferred, or the information will be transferred to the motor neurons, and these motor neurons will now transmit the information and establish a connection with your effector organs, which are your legs, and eventually your legs will complete by moving away from the area where the direction of the car was being visible. So that is how any action that is happening in our body gets completed, and this is a general flow how this gets completed. So as we have seen here, here we talked about the types of neuron. So let us quickly see what are these types. Anyway, I have explained you that, but just giving you a quick summary here. So the first category which we have seen is the sensory neuron, and what it is going to do, so it is going to transfer the messages which is taken up from the receptor and it will be transferred to the nervous system. So just be responsible and vigilant enough when I'm speaking the connections. It is connecting the receptors from to the nervous system. Okay. What is the motor neuron going to do? So once the processing is done by the nervous system, so now the messages from the nervous system to the effector organ, this transmission will be done by the motor neuron. And then there is this third category of neuron also, which is known as the relay neuron. So what does these do? So these basically connects the sensory as well as the motor neurons together. That's the main job of the relay neurons. So with this we have completed our three different types of neurons which you need to know based on grade 10, which is the sensory neurons, the motor neurons and the relay neurons. So I hope I have made you clear what is the general pathway of how any action gets completed through the different neurons which are there in our body. So let us now just see quickly through a flow chart how does the conduction of these messages are done through the structure of a neuron. So let's see that in detail. So the flowchart now you're looking at, children, gives us a detailed information of how does actually the information gets transferred through the neuron. The previous flowchart was just giving us a general meaning, and here in this flowchart we are looking up in a little detail of how the information is transferred basically from one neuron to the other. So I would advise you all to even make a note of it because this is very important, and if you draw this in exam, if there is any question asked on how does the conduction of information takes place through the neuron, this is exactly what you can draw for your exams also. Okay, so let us try to understand what does this flowchart basically says. So as first of all, we do need to note an important note basically, that whenever there is information flowing through the neurons, it is always and always flowing from the dendrites to the axon. There is never a reversal of the flow, but always and always the information will only flow from the dendrite of one neuron until the axon, right? So the flow is similar in any neuron that we talk about. That's first thing. Now, whenever there is any information which is acquired at the dendrite of a neuron, that is at this place, what it is going to happen is, whenever information comes, it first of all triggers a chemical reaction. So this is important to note. The first thing that happens when any information reaches the dendritic part over here is it first of all initiates a chemical reaction which later generates an electrical impulse. We'll understand this later, but just remember as of now that first a chemical reaction would be generated, which will be followed up by generating an electrical impulse. Okay. Now what will happen? This electrical impulse will now travel throughout the neuron. So from the dendrite that it started, it will travel through the cell body, which is cyton. Then it will travel through the axon and it will reach towards the nerve ending. And we do know here the place of synapse is there. What was this that we have studied? So here it's the place mainly where one neuron is going to have its association with the another neuron. And what's the direction that we know? So the nerve ending of one neuron will have connection with the dendrite of another neuron. So now till here your message has reached to the nerve ending of your first neuron. So what is going to happen is next is important. So as the information which was traveling in an electrical way from the dendrites to the axon, and as it has reached now to the nerve ending, over here, once it reaches towards the ending area, this neuron number 1 releases a chemical. I'm repeating myself, hear me carefully. This neuron number 1, which has transferred the electrical impulse over here, as it reaches to the lower areas or mainly the ending areas, here it will release a chemical. And what is the name of a chemical? This chemical is something that we say as a neurotransmitter, which is also the acetylcholine. A very important question, possible 1 mark question also. So please make a note of it. What is the name of the chemical released, or what is the name of the neurotransmitter? So you should know this important keyword over here. Now, as towards the ending, this chemical is released. This released chemical, that is acetylcholine, will be picked up by the dendrite of another neuron, because as I stated, the rule is same. The messages will always flow from the dendrites to the axon, right? So again, for even neuron number 2, the message will flow in the same direction. For neuron number 3, for neuron number 4, and for millions of neurons, the same way the message will be transported. So as in neuron number 1, it reaches till the ending, it released a chemical. Now this chemical, which is picked up by the dendrite of another neuron, will now generate this chemical reaction into an electrical impulse. So as we studied here also, the chemical reaction got initiated because of the release of the chemical which is acetylcholine. This chemical reaction now, once acetylcholine is released, triggers the electrical impulse, and again the same cycle will follow. This electrical impulse will again travel to the dendrites, axon, nerve ending of neuron number 2, will again reach the ending. Again the chemical will release. Again it will be picked up by neuron number 3, and this process will keep on repeating until the information reaches your effector organs. And as we know, the major effective organs are actually the glands or the muscles which are there in our body. So this flowchart, children, basically explains us that how in detail from one neuron to the other basically the messages gets transferred. So I hope you guys are clear with the entire concept that we have covered in the video. As I always say, if you have doubt, ask to me in the comment section box. If you are liking my content, I do want you to show me some motivation by giving me some comments, by liking the video, by sharing it with your friends, and 110% kids by subscribing the channel. So do that and motivate me to make more work for you. I hope the content is useful. If yes, please show some motivations as I'm saying. And until then, happy learning guys. Take care of yourself.